everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. We've got some super interesting stuff to get into today, all about ASML, the company that's at the very heart of this whole AI chip revolution thing.
Oh, yeah. They're the ones building those crazy complex machines, those lithography systems.
Hmm.
They're totally essential for making the most advanced chips, the ones that are powering AI. Like without ASML, forget about those rapid advancements we're seeing. I mean, it just wouldn't be happening.
Yeah, you're right about that. It's why people call ASML an AI concept stock, right? I mean, the success is completely tied to how fast AI takes off, but there's a twist. It's been like on this crazy roller coaster ride lately, right?
Yeah, tell me about it. First it surges with all this AI hype. Then we have that strategic sale right at the peak. And now, well, it's definitely taken a tumble, and I think that's putting it lightly.
So a tumble, huh? I've heard some people call it a bit more than that. We're talking a 40% drop from its high point. And get this, on October 15th, right after their Q3 earnings report, boom, it plummets a whopping 16%.
Yeah, that has got investors freaking out a bit. Like, are we about to see the AI bubble burst? What's going on?
That's the question, isn't it? The million-dollar question, I guess. So let's dig into those Q3 numbers, see if there are any clues hidden in there. On the surface, they look pretty decent, right?
Yeah, they brought in $7.5 billion in revenue. That's a 12% jump compared to last year.
Not bad at all. So where's the problem?
Well, context is key, right?
Mhm.
So while revenue growth is good, their gross margin, that key indicator of profitability, it actually dipped a bit compared to last year. It's still healthy at 51%, but it might be a little sign that things aren't as amazing as they seem.
Okay, so a tiny dip in the margin, but overall the revenue looks pretty solid. But then there's this whole order backlog thing, right?
Ah, yeah, the order backlog, buckle up, because this is where things get really interesting. They wrapped up Q3 with a backlog of just $2.6 billion, which, might sound like a ton. But the market was expecting way more, like somewhere around $5.4 billion,
Yeah.
especially for those super high-end EUV systems that everyone and their mother needs for AI chips. That's a massive difference.
Wow, so companies are hitting the brakes on those big EUV system purchases, huh? Even with all this crazy AI hype going on, I mean, what's the deal with that? Did the CFO say anything about this sudden shift?
Oh, yeah. They basically admitted that demand, especially for those essential EUV systems, is recovering way slower than they thought it would.
So it's almost like companies are getting cold feet about going all in on AI chip production right now. It makes you wonder if maybe the hype is starting to fade just a little.
Yeah, it's a possibility, isn't it?
So we've got this possible disconnect between all the talk about booming AI demand and what companies are actually doing. But before we dive into that rabbit hole, let's take a quick detour and look at where ASML's revenue is actually coming from. There's a pretty interesting geographical twist in all this.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You might be surprised to hear that almost half, a whopping 47% of ASML's Q3 revenue came straight from China.
Wait, seriously, 47%. The is surprising, especially with all the restrictions. On what ASML can actually sell to China, they can only sell those less advanced UV systems, right?
That's right. But here's the thing. This high percentage from China is probably temporary. Analysts are saying that by 2025, China's contribution to ASML's revenue will drop to about 20%. So what we're seeing right now is probably just a blip, not a long-term trend.
Okay, so a little surge in sales to China for now makes sense, but what's causing that expected drop? Is it just the ongoing restrictions, or is there something else going on?
It's a bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the restrictions are definitely a factor, but there's also some strategy at play here. It looks like Chinese companies went on a bit of a buying spree, stocking up on those DV systems
Yeah.
before any potentially tighter restrictions come into play. Pretty smart move, right?
Totally. It's like they're trying to get ahead of the curve before the door slams shut. Speaking of buying patterns, there were a couple other big clients that stood out to me in these reports. Intel and Samsung, they've both made some interesting moves lately, moves that kind of raise even more questions about this whole AI chip market.
Oh, for sure, those two giants are fascinating case studies. You've got Intel, a company you'd think would be leading the charge in AI, and they actually reduced their orders from ASML. A bit of a head-scratcher, right?
It is. With all this AI excitement, you'd think they'd be buying up those EUV systems like crazy. What's going on there?
Well, Intel's been facing some challenges. They've been focusing on cutting costs, even reducing their workforce, and they're going up against some serious competition from TSMC, the Taiwanese chip-making powerhouse. So it seems like Intel's getting their own house in order before going all in on the AI chip race. Maybe they're just being more cautious than some of the other big players.
So they're playing the long game. I can see that. But then there's Samsung, another tech giant with huge ambitions in the AI world, and they also cut back on their ASML purchases. which is weird considering how aggressively they were buying before.
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting. You see, Samsung is currently running at around 81% capacity utilization, which means they've still got some breathing room before they absolutely need those new EUV systems. They're probably waiting till they hit closer to 90% before they place another big order.
So two very different companies, both taking a step back from those big EUV purchases. It makes you wonder if maybe the market is getting a little ahead of itself when it comes to AI. Like, are we seeing a reality check happening right before our eyes?
That's the question everyone's trying to figure out. And to answer it, we need to zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture. We've got some interesting data on the financial health of some of the biggest tech players. Apple, Microsoft, Google, even Tesla. Their performance might give us some clues about the true state of this AI revolution.
Okay, let's do it. I'm ready to see how these tech giants are betting on AI.
All right, let's start with Apple. They're doing well, posting strong iPhone sales as usual. But there's a little bit of chatter on Wall Street. Some analysts think their current valuation, that crazy high price to earnings ratio of 37x, it doesn't quite match up with their 6% revenue growth rate. It could be a sign that their stock is a tad overpriced.
A bit of a disconnect there, maybe. What about Microsoft? They're pouring tons of resources into their cloud platform Azure, but I heard there are some concerns about slowing growth there. What's the deal?
Well, their overall revenue growth was decent at 16%, and their net profit grew by 11%. But those Azure growth numbers are definitely making some investors nervous. It's still growing, just not as fast as it used to, and in the tech world, slowing growth is usually seen as a bit of a red flag.
Yeah, I can see why investors would be worried about that. So what about Google? They seem to be having a pretty good year. Their profits jumped significantly, and it looks like that gave their stock a nice little boost.
Oh, absolutely. Google's revenue grew by a healthy 15%, but their net profit surged by 34%. That kind of jump in profitability is like music to investors' ears. It definitely boosted confidence in their stock.
All right, so Apple might be a bit overvalued. Microsoft's facing some cloud worries, and Google's profit surge is keeping investors happy for now. But what about NVIDIA? They're like the poster child for this whole AI chip boom. Their GPUs are in crazy high demand, but are they really worth all the hype?
NVIDIA is a really interesting case. Their revenue more than doubled year over year, hitting a mind-blowing $30 billion. That's insane growth, and it's all driven by that insatiable demand for their AI chips. But here's the catch, man. Their valuation is through the roof, mostly because of that AI demand. And that makes investors a little nervous. Can they keep up this crazy pace of growth? That's the question.
So it's kind of like a high-stakes gamble on the future of AI. What about Amazon and Meta? They're both heavily invested in AI too. Are they seeing similar returns?
Amazon is doing what Amazon does best, growing steadily. Their cloud platform, AWS, grew by 19%, which is actually a bit faster than previous quarters. Clearly, they're benefiting from the fact that more and more businesses are moving their stuff to the cloud.
Makes sense. And what about Meta? They've been putting a ton of money into AI research and development. Are they starting to see any payoff from those investments?
It's still early for Meta's AI stuff,
Yeah.
but they're definitely committed. Their revenue grew by a healthy 19%, and they made a massive $15.5 billion in free cash flow. But here's what's interesting. They announced plans to increase their capital expenditure in 2025, which basically means they're doubling down on AI. They're going all in, even with all the uncertainty in the market.
Wow, talk about a bold move. And last but not least, we have Tesla. The wild card of the tech world, they've always defied expectations, and it looks like they're doing it again with their recent performance.
Yeah, Tesla's exceeding expectations when it comes to profitability. Their revenue grew by a decent 8%, but their net profit growth was even better, coming in at 17%. It looks like they're proving the doubters wrong and showing that their electric vehicle business can be seriously profitable.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground ASML's performance, those curious buying decisions from Intel and Samsung, and the financial health of some of the biggest tech companies out there. It's a pretty complex landscape, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And there are a few key takeaways that are worth highlighting. What we're seeing is a potential disconnect between all the market excitement about AI and the reality of what's happening with applications and demand.
Yeah, that's for sure. And it really makes me wonder if this AI revolution is living up to all the hype. What do you think? Are we on the edge of a major transformation, or is this all just noise?
That's the question we're going to try to answer as we keep going with this deep dive. Stick around, because in part two, we're going to explore the broader market trends that are shaping the future of AI.
All right, welcome back, everyone. So far, we've been looking at this fascinating world of AI chips, focusing on ASML, a company that a lot of people see as like a bellwether for the whole AI chip industry.
Yeah, and we've seen some pretty interesting signals so far, right? Like those mixed messages from their Q3 results, the cautious moves from Intel and Samsung, and of course those sky-high valuations for all those tech giants betting big on AI.
Yeah, it's a lot to process. To really understand what all of this means, we need to zoom out even further and take a look at the bigger picture, what's going on in those massive consumer markets. You know, the ones that traditionally drive chip demand? I'm talking about things like smartphones and PCs.
Ah, yes, the good old smartphone and PC markets, they've been the engines of the tech world for so long. But things are changing, and that has huge implications for those AI chips.
So what's the story there? Are they still growing like they used to?
Not really the smartphone market. After years of just crazy explosive growth,
Mhm.
it's showing signs of slowing down. Global shipments are only expected to grow by like 5% this year, reaching around 1.2 billion units.
5%. That's a far cry from those double-digit growth rates we were seeing a few years ago.
Exactly. And the PC market is even worse. Shipments are actually declining year over year. People are holding onto their devices longer, and the upgrade cycle just isn't what it used to be.
Okay, so smartphones and PCs are slowing down, but why should we care? What does that have to do with the AI chip market?
Well, here's a connection. Smartphones and PCs have been major drivers of demand for all kinds of chips, including the ones used for AI applications. If these markets keep stagnating, it's going to put a real damper on the growth of the AI chip market as a whole.
Ah, I see. It's like this ripple effect. So if those big markets aren't driving demand like they used to, what's going to fuel the next wave of growth for AI chips?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There are definitely a lot of promising areas out there, self-driving cars, robotics, healthcare, you name it. But the truth is none of them have really emerged as the clear killer app for AI just yet.
Yeah, we're still waiting for that one game-changing application that will make AI totally indispensable in our daily lives. You know, the thing that's going to create that surge in demand and send the AI chip market into overdrive.
Exactly. And until that happens, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty about just
Mhm.
how big this market can really get.
Okay, so no clear killer app just yet. But I've seen some reports saying the AI chip market could be worth like a staggering $600 billion dollars by 2030. Is that even realistic?
Well, those predictions definitely grab your attention, but it's important to remember that they're based on a lot of assumptions about technological advancements, market adoption, and even things like government regulations. A lot can change between now and 2030.
So take those predictions with a grain of salt, got it. But even if those huge market projections don't fully pan out, there's no denying that AI is going to have a huge impact on all of us.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to understand what's really driving this whole AI revolution.
Mm.
Is it just hype, or is there something more substantial going on?
That's a question that's been on my mind this whole time. We've seen those big tech companies betting big on AI, but we've also seen some signs of caution from ASML's customers and those broader market trends.
Exactly. So what does all this mean for our listener?
Yeah.
This person who's trying to make sense of all this AI buzz and figure out what it means for their own life.
That's what we're going to explore in the final part of our deep dive. We'll connect all the dots, examine the potential benefits and risks of AI, and consider what you can do to stay ahead of the curve in this rapidly evolving world. Stick around, folks, because things are about to get even more interesting. All right, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into this whole world of AI chips. We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? ASML's crazy stock ride, the moves those big tech companies are making, and all those broader market trends that are, shaping the future of AI. But now it's time to bring it all home and answer the big question. What does this all mean for you?
Exactly. We've explored that possible disconnect between the AI hype and the actual market demand. The bets that those tech giants are making on AI and all those bigger forces at play. But let's get personal. Why should you care about all of this? And what can you do to, navigate this exciting but sometimes confusing world of AI?
Let's start with the investors out there. If you're looking to ride this AI wave, what are the key takeaways from our deep dive?
Well, I think the biggest thing here is to be cautious and informed. Don't just buy into the hype. Look beyond the headlines and do your research. Just dig into those company financials.
Yeah, remember those valuation concerns we talked about earlier? Just because a company is like associated with AI doesn't mean it's a guaranteed winner.
Right. And ask yourself, are those sky-high valuations justified by the company's performance right now and their future growth potential, or are they just, riding that wave of enthusiasm?
And remember, diversification is key. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Spread your bets across different companies and different sectors to manage your risk.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk to the entrepreneurs and those business leaders out there. This AI revolution, it presents some incredible opportunities for those who are ready to embrace it.
But it definitely requires a strategic approach. You have to think about how AI can enhance your products, your services, even your operations. Can you leverage AI to automate tasks, gain insights from data, or create those personalized experiences for your customers?
And remember, this AI landscape is constantly changing. New tools and technologies are popping up all the time. So be prepared to adapt quickly and stay ahead of the curve.
Now, for all those students and lifelong learners out there, this is a pretty exciting time to be alive. The demand for AI talent is exploding, so if you're looking for a future-proof career path, AI is a fantastic place to start.
Absolutely. Invest in your AI education. Really try to understand those core concepts. Explore different applications and just experiment with new tools and platforms. There's a whole world of knowledge out there waiting to be discovered.
And for everyone, this AI revolution, it gives us a chance to rethink how we live, how we work, how we interact with the world around us.
As AI becomes more and more integrated into our lives, we need to have those open and honest conversations about its ethical implications and its impact on society. What are the potential benefits and risks? How can we make sure that AI is used responsibly, for the greater good?
These are questions we all need to be thinking about and discussing. The future of AI isn't predetermined, it's something we're all shaping together.
So stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged. This AI revolution is just getting started, and it's going to be a wild ride.
We've just scratched the surface in this deep dive, but hopefully it's given you a better understanding of this complex and fascinating world of AI chips, the companies that are driving this revolution, and all those trends that are shaping the future.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those tough questions. The future of AI is in our hands.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. Until next time, keep diving deep.